Okay, I'm going to start, everybody, if everyone's happy with that. So welcome on this Jubilee Eve evening. I don't know what you call it. Thank you so much for joining us. This webinar was created following a discussion in a big staff meeting that we had on International Women's Day. We have some amazing, inspirational women within West Berkshire Council, but we have only a few councillors that are female. And we do have other inspiring people that sit on parish councils, that sit on our community panel and are part of the discussion, but we really hope to encourage more of you to come forward and feel that they would like to do that. So tonight, it's a chance to hear from our councillors and some of their experiences, some of their achievements, and hopefully you will be encouraged to think, yes, I can do that. I would love to help. I'd love to come forward. That's something I'm really excited about. So first of all, I'd like to go round our panelists and just have them introduce themselves. As your host tonight, my name's Amanda. I work within the community and I try and find the voices of people that haven't been heard. I try and make sure that everybody's opinion is passed through so that when our councillors are making decisions about policy, about anything, that they know what you think, which is really important. So first of all, I'm going to ask Lynn if she can quickly introduce herself.
Good evening, everybody. My name's Lynn Dougherty. I'm the leader at West Berkshire Council and I am the ward member for Newbury Speen. I've been a councillor since 2015, so for 7 years.
Thank you. And Joanne?
Hi, hello everybody. I'm Jo Stewart. I'm the ward member for Tilehurst Birch Copse, so I'm right over on the east of the district, and I'm also the adult social care portfolio holder.
Thank you. Thank you. If we can go over to Martha.
Hello, my name is Martha Vickers. I'm a ward member for Newbury Central. As regards how long I've been a councillor for, I've been on the town and the district council, and originally I was elected to the district council in 1991, but I've been on and off since then, so that I haven't been continuously on, but I haven't got all my dates in front of me, so I'll have to leave it a bit vague there. So I've been on and off the council, on the town council for longer than I've been on the district for quite a while, but I won't gabble on there, so I'm a bit vague about my timings, but been around a while, I suppose I should say. I sit on the Health and Wellbeing Board, is my main contribution, but I'm on other committees. We're not listing all our committees and things.
It would be really nice for you to mention some of those later, Martha. That would be really useful. Thank you. Okay. Claire?
Yes, hello everyone. My name's Claire Rowles and I'm one of the ward councillors for Hungerford and Kintbury. There's 2 others, so there's 3 of us in total. And I was elected in 2019, so I'm a bit of a newbie as opposed to Martha.
Wonderful. Now we've also got some officers sat as panelists and they're there really to kind of support the event tonight. So we have Alice who looked after, if you can see behind her, there's a fabulous Zoom background that sort of advertises this event. So any information that's been put on the website, Alice will have had a part in that to make sure that we've informed you as much as possible. Hopefully we'll keep you with all that sort of information will keep coming through tonight as well. You might also see Jake who's sat there. Jake is a support and he works alongside Lynn and other councillors. Jake, did you want to turn your camera on and say hello or not? Please don't feel like you have to. He's here to support in case we have Wi-Fi problems and difficulties. He'll step in and co-host.
Yeah, I felt a bit out of place, so I was going to sit back and let you guys carry on until I'm needed.
Thank you very much. It's lovely that you're here to support us. I really appreciate that. There are lots of things that we'd like to talk to you about tonight. What we felt would be really useful is to find out why these amazing people step forward and help in our community. So I'm going to go back to them one by one and ask them to explain what made that decision happen? Why did they decide to become a councillor or get involved in helping in the community in the way that they do? So again, we'll go back to Lynn, and Lynn, if you could explain that to us, that would be great.
Okay, it was quite simple for me. I was running the family support charity Home Start here in West Berkshire, and I was working directly with children and families across the district. And I was becoming increasingly dissatisfied with the level of support that the local authority were providing those children and families. And I think I tried to influence that from the outside of the council. And I had lots of meetings with the council and we spoke about lots of different things, but I felt I wasn't getting anywhere. And actually at that time, the council was inspected by Ofsted and their children's services were found to be inadequate. So I felt that there was only one thing that I could do, which was to put myself forward and see if by becoming a councillor I could influence some of the work that was being done by our children and family services here in West Berkshire. And I was very fortunate that I won that election and I went on from there to become Children and Family Services portfolio holder. So I was involved in the journey that took our children's services from an inadequate rated Ofsted report to a good within 2 years. We were the first local authority to do so, 2 leaps within 2 years, and it's something I'm immensely proud of. But it was really because of the work that I was already doing within the community that made me stand for election the first time round.
Interesting.
Thank you, that's amazing. Thanks, Lynn. Okay, Jo, we'll come over to you.
A very different story, I would say. When my daughter was at primary school, there were spaces on the governing body, and I had always been interested in sort of doing additional things within the community, volunteering, that sort of thing. So I was very lucky to become part of the governing body for Kennet Valley Primary School, it was. And what that did was it gave me a little bit of a taste, I guess, for where you could perhaps start to see that you could make some differences. And it was sort of starting very, very small, I guess, you know, what differences we could make within the school. But it also gave me a bit of an insight into how some of local government works, particularly within education. And then as these things happen, you get to meet lots of different people who then talk to you about the next step. So a couple of my fellow governors were parish councillors, and they suggested that it would be a great step for me to join the parish council. So I did. I joined Holybrook Parish Council and had a lovely time there with some really great female role models, actually. But again, that gave me another taste of where I could see that I could make more of a difference and get involved in more learning about local government. My partner is also a councillor. He was elected before me, and I think there was a bit of a conversation about, well, if you can't beat them, join them. And I spoke to him. I saw, you know, the meetings he was involved in, the people that he was meeting, and a few of our friends persuaded me to stand. And I was totally stunned, if I'm honest, to be elected. And I don't know if that is something that, it's certainly particular to me, but I think a lot of women also sometimes lack the confidence and perhaps the self-esteem and think that people would vote for them. But here I am, 3 years, I was elected at the same time as Claire, so another relative newbie. But I've realised that I do really love it. You have difficult days. I'm sure we'll talk about some of the challenges later on, but it's still one of the best decisions that I've ever made.
I'm glad. Thank you. Claire.
Thank you. Yes. So mine's a slightly different story. My father was on West Berkshire Council. He was the member for Kimbry 18 years. So, and he was also chairman of the council for a year. So I kind of grew up with politics around the table from quite an early age. And from there, so that kind of got me interested in it, really. And I sort of saw the work that he did firsthand, which was always really interesting to me. And I think also the fact that it was where we lived. And I'm very fortunate that I've been elected to the ward of Kimpbury and Hungerford. So it's quite personal to me, and I actually live in the ward as well. So that's a sort of nice story when you sort of pound the streets of Kimpbury where you grew up, which I think is important as well. But then I went on and I actually married a member of Parliament for all my sins. I just like to say I'm no longer married to him, but that also gave me a taste for sort of the national side of things, and also to see how Parliament works with local government as well, which was fascinating. So that gave me another insight. And actually my former husband was also deputy leader of Barnet Council, which is quite a large council in London. So got quite a lot of insight into what it was like to actually be a councillor. And then the reason why I stood was very simple. I feel very strongly and passionately about getting more women into Parliament, into local government, but also Parliament, and also police and crime roles as well. And in that, and parish council roles at all levels. And because of that, I thought, well, I'm going to not sort of, talk about it. I'm going to walk the walk and actually do it. And so that's what I did. And I put myself forward. And very much like Joe, I was absolutely astounded to get elected. It was a tough election. But I also thoroughly enjoyed the campaigning. I do enjoy knocking on doors, which I think some women and men, some just don't like doing it. But I do enjoy it. I enjoy engaging with people and listening to them. And sometimes you get, sort of quite challenging situations. But actually, I always walk away having learnt something and having met somebody and having been exposed to a different sort of side and a different opinion, which I enjoy. So that's my story. And I'm really thrilled that we're holding this event because it is dear to me. And I do hope that it encourages more women to step forward. Thank you.
Me too, thank you. I've left you a little bit last, Martha, on purpose because I feel like you've had so many different types of roles within your career. So how did you sort of get into it in the first place, and then how did it lead through to where you are now?
My decision to enter local politics came through my experience as a health visitor, and that's what I did in my working life, working with young families. And in fact, I was involved with Home Start, which is a charity, and Lynn will remember us all sitting around the table. And I was involved with the group that helped set up Home Start, and Lynn was an excellent chair for quite a while before she moved on to other things. So that's interesting to hear her say that. But my particular concern as a health visitor, which led me to stand for the then District Council, Newbury District Council, was the decision to allow social housing homes to be sold. And I worked with a lot of families that were desperately in need of houses. And I was very concerned that this selling off of social housing was going to lead to a depletion of the stock unless, there was more money pumped back into the system to build more social housing. So I think that was a discussion that was going around at the time. And I thought being a district councillor might give me a voice, a sort of lobbying voice, although I think you learn that you're not as powerful as you think you are. So, I think, again, like others, I was quite surprised to get elected. I just stood, it was like a little adventure, going around knocking on the doors for the first time. And like everybody else, I really enjoyed meeting people. I mean, as a health visitor, I was used to visiting people in their own homes. So that was not a very new experience, but obviously you're doing it in a different capacity. And I very seldom found that people were rude to me on the doorstep, whatever their politics, they were quite happy to have a discussion. So, I mean, I think that's something that people get fixed in their mind. Oh, it'll be terrible. And, if they don't want to vote for you, they'll be horrible. Actually, I know we're not getting into party politics, but finding out what people want to vote is quite a difficult thing on the doorstep because everybody can be so nice and pleasant, when you think, oh, everybody loves me. But anyway, so that was a learning experience was going around. How has it changed? I don't want to go on too long, but obviously being a district councillor is quite different from being a councillor in the present council, because initially on the district council, we were all committees. So, you could say that in some ways, all councillors are more equal. There was no such thing as backbenchers. You had your chair of a committee, and then you all took part in these sometimes quite lengthy discussions on the various subjects. So I can see the pros and cons of the committee system and what we've got, the executive system. You know, obviously it's much more streamlined as an executive system because decisions can be taken more quickly, less officer time, and all those sorts of things. But from my point of view, I sort of feel I have less involvement. I feel, you know, I feel it's less democratic. So that's just a discussion, a feeling that I have, having been involved with both systems. But I can see the pros and cons of both. And I've sat through committees in the old district council where I wish some people would just shut up. You know, you sort of, you're going round and round in circles. And I must say, most of the people that tended to be a bit verbose with the blokes, actually.
But Martha, all this time that you've worked within the community, it shows that you must have really enjoyed it. It must have been a great thing for you to do, or you wouldn't still be sat here talking to us
on the
today.
council. Yes, I think you always feel, although you have frustrations and that things don't happen and you can't get things done in the way you hoped you would get things done, I think you always live in hope. You know, I think this is a really good time actually to go and find out from everybody what their biggest achievement has been, because I do appreciate that with any kind of democracy there is going to be challenges and there are going to be pluses and minuses, but I think those achievements make it all worthwhile. So if I can go back to Lynn and if I can just ask you, it'd be really nice to hear what your greatest achievement has been to date. If you could share that, that would be really nice.
I think I'd struggle to give you one, Amanda, because I think it's quite interesting, because I would say there's the achievements that go across the entire district, and then I'm immensely proud to represent where I live, and there's achievements that I have within my own ward which I've done for my residents. And I think it's to say one thing would be really not recognising the amount of success and the pride that we all take in our work. So probably one of the biggest achievements I've sort of taken across the whole council was the changes that I worked with within children and family services, and to see the improvements within that service. We were recently re-inspected again just a few weeks ago, and again we were found to be good, and I'm really pleased that families and children now get the right level of support from West Berkshire Council. So that will always be a really personal achievement for myself. However, also becoming leader of West Berkshire Council, that in itself was an achievement, but I never expected when I became leader to lead through the last 2 years. And it's been an immensely difficult 2 years for the local authority and for all officers and all members. And actually to look back on the response that we as a local authority have put in place with responding to the pressures that COVID has brought and how we look to mitigate the impact on our residents, I'm really proud of the work that the council did and every single officer in the council. So that's a sort of, if I'm talking the big picture achievements, I would say those were the two that I would identify. I hope you'll just go with me a little bit, because I'm also the ward member for Newbury-Speen. I've lived in Donington here for 22 years, and I'm really proud to represent my community. And it's little things that you can do that make such a difference to people's lives. So I sort of think about it, and we had an ongoing issue which was driving lots of people crazy with the flooding that we had on the Oxford Road down by the junction with Grove Road. And actually, through persevering and getting the high-rise team back out time and time again, we've actually solved that. I've had residents that have complained to me around Dean Way about accessibility because their pavements were crumbling, and I've had stuff like that worked upon and done. And then most recently, I've just secured some active travel funding for Stock Cross by working with the Parish Council. So I think it's really, it's difficult to say your biggest achievement, because I think when you become a councillor, you're doing so much and you're so involved with your local community that I couldn't put my finger on one, I'm sorry, but I would sort of name those as things that I feel very proud about.
Thank you. As a resident of West Berkshire, because I think sometimes we forget we are also voters, residents, people who live in West Berkshire, it's that kind of thing that really matters to us and where we're living and the things that happen every day. I'm going to go around my screen now rather than go in certain orders. So I apologise if everybody's got themselves all ready. I'm going to go next to Jo.
I wasn't expecting that, because you said you were going to go in a different order, so that's brilliant. So similar to Lynn, although, so I would say adult social care as my portfolio is really interesting, really important, and I'm so pleased that that Lynn has trusted me with it, to be honest, because it ticks all my boxes for working with people, making things better for them. But it is such a huge beast, and we've got some big changes coming our way. So it could be that my greatest achievement is on the way. But until we get to that point, I would say that the adult social care strategy, which we sent out last year, and we've since done consultation on, is something that I'm really pleased that we've managed to do. We've not really had a formal adult social care strategy before. Clearly, we've got lots of plans. We've had plans, you know, and the programme of work that continues. But now what we're doing is we're setting out what our priorities are going to be in terms of adult social care. And we will be sending out a final document because we've had all of the consultation and we've taken all that feedback on board. And there will be an action plan that comes as part of that. So I think that's probably to date my sort of greatest achievement in my portfolio. And then if I could also mention a couple of things as Lynn did. So I don't know about you, Lynn, but for me, it feels a little bit like you're on call 24/7. Now, I haven't had calls in the middle of the night, and I know some councillors have, you know, where you've got emergency situations, but I'm always mindful. We live in a 24/7 world. We have social media where people have access to us and we have access to them all of the time. So, you know, you're always sort of looking to see if there's something going on in the local area. Is it something you should be aware of? Is it something that you should tell others about? But one of the things that I'm really pleased about, and it was one of my campaigning issues, was a car park in Tilehurst, Hildon's Drive, if anybody on the call is familiar with the area. And it was becoming a real fly tipping hotspot. It was absolutely disgusting. And what it was doing was it was encouraging antisocial behaviour. So there were all sorts of, the police were called every night because there were all sorts of people pulling up in that area and doing all sorts of things that they shouldn't be. So one of the greatest things I found about being a counsellor is that a lot of the time you know who to speak to, and in life, quite often it's who to speak to get something resolved that is really important. So I worked with Kofi, who's our waste and environment manager, and Veolia, who are our contractor for waste services. And they went in and cleared all of that mess up, and there were mattresses and also white goods, all sorts of things, cleared it all away. And then working with the residents, we actually got some of the surface redone. They put signs up. It now looks like somebody cares about the area. And then finally, because when you open up a nice big area, sometimes you get people coming to be in that area that shouldn't be there. So with one of the highways contractors, Volker Highways, they gave us some seeds and some topsoil, and we created a bank that then made it a nice secure area, which is now growing some lovely wildflowers on it. And that is going to be one of the biggest things for me to talk about with my residents when I'm campaigning in future. And I'm pleased to say I've been up there recently and it still looks grand. So everybody's really treating it well. So I'm really pleased. I am also known as the litter picking queen this side of the district. I set up the Tilehurst litter picking community, and I'm hoping to expand that actually further across my ward and also into neighbouring wards as well, because clearly litter doesn't just stop on your boundary, it goes everywhere.
That's really interesting actually, because Claire's area and some of the Hungerford council have done some amazing litter picking work. They're just fabulous, and it is that linking up. And the thing about West Berkshire Council that I'm most proud of to work for is that we have some amazing links within the community, but also within our departments. We work together really well, and as councillors, and any of you out there that think, oh actually this sounds quite interesting, I think I would like to get more involved, there is a support there. I mean, you can see it on the panelists today, that lots of different people from different backgrounds and environments and things all working together to make everything better, and surely that's an amazing thing to be doing. Martha, I'm going to come to you next, because I think you'll probably I wanted to leave you just a moment because of the time that you've spent and the different roles that you have done. If you can think of something that really made a difference just to share with us, that would be great.
Right, well, I've got a little list, but not a very long list. I was thinking of sort of more recent things. I mean, more recently as a district councillor, and I think I agree with what's been said, and particularly, you know, with what Lynn said about it's the things that you do for your community that are the most important. And there's important things that you do on the council, obviously the discussions and the high level and the strategies and all those things. But sadly, people don't know about that, and how we make our meetings more appealing to people and get them to come in and find out about what decisions are being made on their behalf, I think is quite a challenge, actually. And I think that's something that all councillors feel strongly about. So I think that's, you know, that's something for the future. But recently, I mean, I've helped to get my local bridge, the Monkey Bridge, as it's referred to, resurfaced after an accident. And I think local people are quite pleased about that, cyclists and walkers. And also we had a threat to a path going around our local Speen Mall, which people particularly used during COVID for their exercise. And that was threatened with closure because of some antisocial behaviour, which for all sorts of reasons. And, you know, I got a little group together to talk to the landowner, which is something, you know, as Joanne said, you know who to go and talk to. You find the connections, and that is just so sort of satisfying to think that you can make connections, and you know, because you've done this, and you know, you sort of get to know who to talk to in your area. And that was very satisfying, because we actually were able to talk to him. We did litter picking across that mall, which was becoming a problem. We have our local litter picking group. I think litter picking, sadly, is a problem everywhere. So, I mean, that's something that you get involved in as a councillor. I mean, because I'm also have been for a long time on the town council as well as the district, quite a lot of things overlap a little bit. And I mean, I know we're also encouraging people to stand for council on whatever level, parish, town, district. So I found on the town that it's sort of it's quite user friendly in a sense, because you can get involved in little ways. And it's, I found it really interesting being on the town, and I was very honoured to be mayor some time ago, and that was particularly, you know, that was a real honour. And in that capacity, I made helping young people my main purpose of being there, and I formed the first Newbury Young Persons Council. I started the local democracy working group there, which is still continuing, which is good. And I also, you know, have very fond memories of meetings in the Waterside with young people when they're enthusiastic discussions. I started the town council surgeries, and I worked with young people to get the first skate park going in Victoria Park. So I have fond memories going back quite a way of the things that I was able to do. And I chaired Sustainable Newbury on behalf of the town council and ran the greening campaign in my ward. And that was quite a challenge, but that was an interesting thing to do. And we have the greening campaign coming by and being back and being championed by the district council at the moment, which is good. But it was a really, really useful experience, actually getting individuals to look at their lives and how they can actually make them greener. And I actually started, the precursor to the bid was something called the town centre manager, and I was actually instrumental in getting the town centre manager employed then, and then that has led on to the bid, because I've always feel being a town centre councillor, you know, you get very involved with all the issues in your town centre, and so I'm very enthusiastic, and I think Newbury is a beautiful town. I want to keep it that way, and things that are essential to Newbury, such as the market, I was able on the town to sort of, you know, try and work with that and try and keep them going. I promoted cycling and walking in the town centre. So, you know, I'm sort of going on a little bit here, but I sort of feel there's lots of.
There is, Martha. I think what it's highlighted to everyone, the reason I think it was so important for you to share from the time that you've been in this service for our public, is that there are lots of different elements and lots of different ways that have led you through. And it might be that some of our attendees tonight just want to join the community panel and join a conversation. It might be that they think, do you know, parish council sounds for me, or they might be straight in there. No, I really like the sound of making these changes, and joining these boards that you've talked about and being a councillor might be the way forward for me. Claire, can we come to you? Thank you.
Thank you. That's quite a hard act to follow, really. I feel a little bit inadequate. But anyway, I will share a few nuggets with you, and I just have a few if you can indulge me. I think one of the things that's already been mentioned is sort of waste, and one of the things I'm really proud of is that I worked very closely with Kofi, who's our waste manager, who's been mentioned already, who's an absolute amazing officer and who has helped me enormously to get recycling bins on Hungerford High Street, and actually throughout areas of Hungerford. So I think we've got about 10 in total. And that was on the back of actually that happening in Newbury Town Centre. So it was really sort of a lead on from that. But I was immensely proud to sort of come up with the idea of actually let's roll it out further and let's make it happen. So worked very closely with the Hungerford Town Council on that, and the Mayor Helen Simpson, who is an inspiration to women stepping forward as well. So that was one of my things I was quite proud of, because also I use them as well. So it's quite nice. It puts a smile on your face when you put your recycling in them. And then another small, when I say small, it was something that really brought it home to me, how important it is just to make the small, well, when I say small differences, but actually that you really can make a difference to people's lives. So I had a lady turn up on my doorstep once, and she lives in my village, and she came to see me, and she wanted some help getting a care package for her husband, who was just about to come out of hospital, but they wouldn't release him from hospital until the care package was in place. So actually, as Jo says, it's very much about working who to go to and who to work with. And actually, Jo helped me. She was instrumental in helping me with this particular lady. And actually, it was really seamless from there. And we managed to get the care package in really quickly for her. And I'm grateful to Jo for her help with that. But actually, literally, I didn't really sort of hear much about it from there. I sort of got the workings going. And then the next thing I knew, she turned up on my doorstep with a bunch of flowers, which was so sweet. Actually, I emailed Jo to say I owe everybody a flower, because there was quite a few officers involved in the process as well. So I think I still owe them those flowers. But that was just something that really brought it home to me that you know, you can make a difference in that to people's lives. And then just two other things I was going to mention, and I think we may come on to this in another part of the discussion, but we do have local authority representatives on outside bodies. And I'm grateful to Lynn for allowing me to be our the West Berkshire local authority representative on the Mary Hare School for the Deaf board, which I've really enjoyed every minute of, and hopefully had some contribution to helping them build their new primary school and helping them along the way with all their strategy and what they're trying to achieve as a school, which is incredible. And secondly, I'm also the local authority representative on the Thames Valley Police and Crime panel. And again, I think that's been fantastic insight. We basically hold the Police and Crime Commissioner, Matt Barber, to account. And that's been interesting in terms of my little part in getting West Berkshire on the map. I sit with Oxfordshire, Buckinghamshire and other councillors. And so it's about getting our issues on the table and pushing what's important to residents of West Berkshire in front of Matt, and making sure that we're heard. So that was sort of something I wanted to mention. Thank you.
I think some of these extra things and the boards that you sit on, these are all things that sometimes are sort of go unknown. People aren't so aware that these really interesting things go on, and that you can affect things in such a positive way. I just want to ask you one question, Claire. I hope it's not too awkward for you. When you attended your first meeting in that capacity, how did you feel, and how did they make you feel?
On both of those outside bodies, yeah. Just the police one was, I didn't know what to expect. I think it was slightly easier because it was, I was dialing in remotely, I think, at that point. I think we didn't really, no, that's right, because I took over from Howard, who was attending them in person. So I sort of joined soon, just before sort of COVID. So we were meeting remotely. So it was a slightly easier situation, but I did attend my first one in person not so long ago at Buckinghamshire County Council. And actually finding it was quite a challenge. But actually walking in the room, even I'd met a lot of people on Zoom, And so it was a bit easier, but actually it was so nice to meet people in person, and they were so friendly, and it was so interesting to go to a different council office, to meet different councillors, to talk to them about their roles, and they knew an awful lot of West Berkshire councillors as well. So that was nice. So it's like a sort of mini network. And on Mary Hare, which is just a astounding, amazing people on the board, and the head teacher in the school, they are by their nature just very welcoming, and I felt incredibly privileged. And I also think they had a great process of almost sort of inducting you into that role. So I found it quite easy, if I'm honest.
So something that might have seemed quite challenging is actually it's very accessible to everybody.
Very much so.
Wonderful.
And there's lots of support, and also I think it's important to do things that you're passionate about as well, because that makes it sort of a bit easier, because you've got an interest and you can ask lots of questions.
Absolutely, thank you. There are a couple of things that I thought might be quite nice to just touch on briefly. There is an allowance for councillors. Would somebody care to sort of elaborate a little bit on how that works?
I'm happy to take that one if you would like, Amanda. So every councillor is entitled to a basic allowance, which is paid 11 months of the year. So it's not paid in May, just a reminder for us all. But it enables people, I can't remember the figure off the exact top of my head, but it's about £8,000 per annum is the basic allowance for being a councillor. And it's very much something that we've fought to keep on all sides, actually, because we genuinely believe that if you want to encourage more people to come forward and be a councillor, it cannot be the remit of people that only have enough money to do so. And what I mean by that is the fact that you do have to give up your time, and you do have to come forward and spend time away, that you're giving, you're doing that. So we think very strongly that people should be rewarded for that, because it enables them to. Some people choose to work 4 days a week, so they might drop their hours to enable them to do a councillor. I know Jo is. And others might think, well, actually, I've got other commitments and everything else. So I think it's important that everybody recognises that there is a basic allowance for being a councillor. On top of that, there is also the opportunity to claim childcare. And I think that's really important, because when I started in 2015, I know that was quite a concern for people that I started with, because were they able to find funding for leaving their children with a childminder for the night or a babysitter for the night, and they shouldn't be out of pocket. And then there is also travel allowances, so that if you're coming in, so if you take somebody like Jo, who lives over in the east of our district actually, and Claire, who's very rural, they're coming into the centre of Newbury and out, so that they're not disadvantaged compared to Martha and I, who can potentially walk in. I know Martha does. So we do that. Then on top of that, there are special responsibility allowances, and they tend to go with additional responsibilities, so that if you are a portfolio holder, as Jo is, or a shadow portfolio holder, as some of our opposition members are, you're chairman of a particular committee, there are additional allowances that go on top of that. So we do think that it's a really important part of making sure that it is accessible to all, to enable them.
Thank you. Martha, did you want to say something?
Yeah. Well, I totally agree with what Lynn has said about the importance of allowances. And I don't know that people are generally aware of that as well, that they can get this help, because it is important to encourage as wide a group as possible to stand for the council. And a lot of people think it should be more. And obviously that's debatable. And I just wanted to say that on the town councils don't get any allowances. They can claim expenses for travel. And I think Newbury Town does have a carer's, child minding or carers, and it can be a carer's allowance as well. So you might have an elderly parent that needs, looking after while you're at a meeting or something. So it sort of goes across the board. But on parishes and towns, it's totally voluntary. You're a volunteer. So I don't think people appreciate, that they've got all these volunteers in their midst as well. So I think that's an important point to make.
Thank you. That's really useful. So earlier in the conversation, we were asked by Alice about how we reach other communities, how we include everybody. Would any of you like to pick up on Alice's point and have a speak about that?
I don't mind commenting. It's a difficult one. I think you need champions. You need people such as Alice to actually give you guidance as to how to approach different groups with different, different cultures and different ways of looking at things. I think there's another comment in the chat that's saying we have, not enough people or different, well, I think it mentions colour, but there's different ethnic minorities as well. So I think we need to engage more. I think we try a little, but we could try more to engage with different cultures. I think we, when we go around door knocking and that, we have a chance to talk to people, and I think that is always an opportunity. And quite often you find people who want to talk to you. I have. But I think it's sort of women across the board, not just women of colour, that sort of need encouraging, really. So I don't know. It's a really difficult one. I mean, we have got. I think there are some initiatives being tried. I think the EduCafe was meant to encourage diversity and sort of encouraging different minorities, but I'm not quite sure whether it's going along that track. It seems to be more sort of, I don't know, including English as second language, mums groups, craft groups. I'm not sure that it's focusing on the ethnic diversity, but maybe it could. So maybe that could be expanded a bit.
If I can just come in there, Amanda. I mean, one of the things, and certainly when I became leader at West Berkshire Council, we looked at the diversity of the elected members, and this was very much picked up on, that we need a far more diverse cross-party selection of members to represent our community. And tonight is an example of some of the work that we're trying to do to encourage women to come forward. But we are lacking in young people, we're lacking of people from different ethnic groups. So the more we can do it's about breaking down some of the barriers. So if Alice has got particular things that she thinks are a barrier, I'd be really interested to hear. I know as far as women are concerned, we've done a couple of bits of work, because one of the things that was raised with me was that councillors, well, not just women actually, councillors weren't entitled to maternity or paternity leave, and there is a rule that makes you have to turn up at council on a regular basis, or else you can be in breach of the rules of the council. So one of the first things I did as leader was actually bringing parental leave for councillors. I know as a council we've looked at things like menopause policy and everything else. So I think if there's a particular barrier, then I'd be really interested to know. And I do think that we've put in place, and Amanda is testimony to this, a whole way of how do we engage with some of those harder to reach communities, and what is it that they need and we can do to assist to help them to step forward. So I think, if there's specifics there, Alice, be very happy to hear from them. We really want to be proactive in trying to get to as many people as we possibly can to encourage them to step forward.
Thank you. I found that by going out into our community and opening conversations, I learn in my mind, I feel, oh, okay, this is the information I'm going to receive from this community. I'm always blown away. There's always so much more that's offered and so many different options for us to consider. And the more that we open that conversation up and the more that we include everybody, the better everything will be for everyone within West Berkshire, because we all touch on each other's lives. There are some questions. There aren't many, but if anyone that is an attendee wants to ask a question, please pop them in the question box and we'll try and answer them for you. There is one in there at the moment from Laura, who says, what advice would you have given yourself when you were first elected about life as a councillor and how to make a success of it? Which I think, firstly, is a fabulous question. Thank you, Laura. And I wish I'd have added that to my agenda. So, Jo, you had your hand up. If you could start with that question, that would be great.
Yeah, I did have a sneaky look in there and I saw the question from Laura, and I've been mulling it over a little bit because it is such a good question. I think the biggest learning for me has been that you will not always be able to resolve people's problems in the way that they want them to be resolved. And that's been the hardest thing for me to come to terms with, because I am the sort of person that wants to make everybody happy and make their life wonderful. And there are just sometimes barriers that are just cannot be overcome for very good reason. So maybe my advice would be cut yourself some slack, and celebrate the wins, and be compassionate and empathetic when you can't give what the other person is expecting, I think is probably my biggest nugget of truth.
Thank you. Martha?
Yeah, I mean, I think, thinking back, and even now, I think you actually know more than you think you know. I think you can be quite intimidated when you join a council and you look around and you see all these, particularly all these suited people that look as though they, you know, they must rule the world. You know what I mean? And actually, they don't know as much as they think they know. And you know, you actually, your experiences, your life experiences, and whatever you've been working in, and your experiences as a family person, particularly your experiences as a woman in all the different capacities of the way you have to work, you know, with families, whatever you do, you learn such a lot. And I think we diminish the value of life experience, really. And I can remember, I still do to some extent, feeling slightly intimidated and wondering, well, I'm thinking this, should I say it? Is it actually important enough? Or is it going to, you know, will people understand? Or have I, because you're not using the fancy language that some people use, you can sort of, it can feel, and I think you learn that what you've got to say is just as important, and your simple language is probably better than the sort of highfalutin words that some people who like to stand on their soapboxes use. So
well said, Martha, well said.
Don't be overwhelmed. Don't be overwhelmed by people who wish to stand on their soapboxes. You've got plenty to say, and what you've got to say is really valuable as a person representing your community.
I think that's lovely. That sums up what tonight's about. There are so many people out there with so much more to say, and we would like to hear them. Claire?
Yeah, can I just add to that? It's a tiny bit sort of taking that point that Martha's just made, but I wanted to make 2 points. First one is, I learnt early on that there is no such thing as a silly question. And I've my life generally, actually, in my professional life as well, because 9 times out of 10, if you're thinking something, somebody else in the thing, and at the moment you get that out on the table, you don't. I was encouraged that other councillors were coming forward with questions that I had in my mind as well. So it's about having that little bit of confidence just to say, actually, I don't understand that, or whatever it is. Was the first point. Second point is, I wanted to make people aware, particularly, that we have a fantastic induction programme for new councillors. And one thing I have learned is that it's really important to try and attend those, because they have sessions for every single aspect of all the committees, all the workings of the council. And I didn't actually get to attend all of them when I first joined, and I regretted that. And they rerun them. In fact, we're rerunning some now. And I've just been on a chairing skills course, which I found incredibly helpful. And so there's a lot of support that actually not only helps you as a councillor, but helps you in your professional life as well, or whatever you do in the world. So I think my point would be, make sure you go on all the induction courses, and you do take away an awful lot from that. And you also get to meet officers quite early on, and that helps with your sort of connecting your network as well.
Thank you. I think that's quite reassuring, and it sort of makes everyone understand that they're not just launched out there and expected to know the rules without being told them. I quite fancy going on one of those courses. I still find all the committees very baffling, so I will enrol. I will absolutely enrol. Does anyone else want to say anything before I go and check if there's any more questions?
I can't see any more questions at the moment.
So I've got, what have I got here? I've got Paula. If you were to join the council as an independent, not affiliated to any political party, would you have access to the same level of information and support as to those who are part of a political party?
Lynn probably wants to answer that.
Thanks, Martha. Yes, I think and if I'd answered the question before, and I'm conscious we don't all need to answer every question, was one of the things I would say that is we have some fantastic officers within the local authority, and one of the things that you very quickly realise is that those officers are there with the actual professional guidance and advice, and they offer that to everybody. It doesn't matter which political party you are, or if you're an independent, you will get that same level of support from those officers. So the simple answer is yes. I think there's a slight difference with regards to group support, and that's based around the number in your group and actually having somebody to give you, I know Amanda introduced Jake earlier, so Jake supports a Conservative group, and that's based on the fact that there's 24 of us, so he helps to coordinate that, and that's very much proportional depending on the numbers that you are. But officers work across party and they work with everybody in the same way. So yes, there is the same level of support from all officers, and briefings available for as much or as little as you would like. I think that's probably fair to say, Martha.
That sounds very fair. Yeah, I think I can remember one independent on the council while I've been on. I don't remember him having a problem, but yeah, it's that group support thing. I mean, you have to be, is it 5? The number is 5 before you actually can get an officer to support you, which is quite, which is quite useful, a useful backup. So obviously that is a disadvantage. But I mean, I would back up what Lynn says about the support you get from officers. I mean, we have a wonderful bunch of officers, yourself included, Amanda. You know, and I'm always amazed at their patience, because I often, particularly with IT, I'm shrinking up with, oh, I can't do this, what's happened to that, and you know, shrieking down the phone at them, and they're so patient, you know, and just you know, talk you through things.
I think that support. We were all working behind the scenes in the council, and we certainly treat everybody equally in that way. The only time it might be a little bit unequal if somebody walks in with a nice cake or something, they might get top billing for that day. But other than that, you're all equal to us. There is another question in the chat, which is from Alice, and Alice has said, it's not pleasant to watch the behaviour of the council members at executive meetings, which can put people off. It can be intimidating. I am going to ask you to answer that question, but the one thing that one of the reasons that I wanted to really support this event is to change the voices and to have a more balanced voice out there. And as you've seen today, everybody takes their turn, they've all got something to say, and everybody respects what's being said. And I think that more female voices to add into that will help. But please, it's not for me to answer that question. I've completely butted in. Would any of you like to take that question forward? Jo?
Yeah, if it's okay to start off. So what people may not know is that Martha, Claire, myself and Caroline, who would have been here tonight with us, actually have absolutely spotted this sort of issue ourselves and feel uncomfortable in a lot of cases. I know I've spoken to Lynn a lot about this too. So we've had conversations about what can we do to make the conversation that is seen in our meetings as being something that is not intimidating, that is not confrontational in a personal way. And I think that's probably one of the biggest things. Often people have said, you know, there will be debates because there will be differences of opinion for very good reason. But actually, for me, it's about not making it a personal attack on somebody else's view. They are perfectly entitled to have that view. And I'm just really pleased that, and I think, Amanda, you probably hit the nail on the head there, that we could come together. We all come from different parties, but actually what brings us together is that we are women who were unhappy with some of the conversations that were taking place. And I think we came to the conclusion that one of the best things we could do was to lead by our own behaviour, because that's the one thing that we can control. We really can't control how somebody else is going to behave. It's very difficult to do that. And I think we have led by those examples. I think we do. And I know Lynn does in the way that she speaks. It can also be quite difficult when you have residents or third parties that come in and add their voice into the mix as well, because you're never quite sure what topic's going to be discussed and how passionate people are. And again, you know, you have to just control the way that you are talking. They are perfectly entitled to have their opinion, and that's why they're there, and that's what causes this wonderful debate that we have. But actually, in the way that we respond to them, I would hope that we are always respectful.
Thank you. And I hope that by encouraging more people to come forward, that continues to happen and increase. Martha.
Yeah, I mean, when I first came on the council in the early 90s, we had quite a few women, and I keep racking my brains wondering why it's changed. I can't remember the proportion, but there were quite a few of us. And we actually, I mean, we still had the same issues with the men on the council, and we actually formed a women's group to actually sort of, you know, try and keep them in their place, because we weren't very happy with the manner in which they treated the women on the council. But there were a fair number of us, so, you know, we were sort of a fairly solid group. And I'm wondering, I think people have got more cynical about politics rather than less, which is very sad. And one can debate what that's all about, really. And I think, and the feeling that, oh, what's the point? You can't change things.
Well, I think you've all shown tonight you can change things.
Yes.
And I think actually that there is a strength here, and I hope that we can encourage some of the people that have listened tonight, and we will share this webinar on our website as well for the people that couldn't attend, to encourage them to come forward and receive some more information if they would like to. Can
I just add one more little point I was going to make?
Yes, of course.
Just to say that when we're going around canvassing on the doorsteps and when we're having elections, we're very, very political. And I think sometimes that is carried off into the council after the election. And I think, generally speaking, most of us just want to work together, as Jo has said. So I think the problem possibly is with some councillors is they keep their political hats on all the time. And I think we need to be more sort of just work together as a group and get things done. And I think that sometimes becomes an issue, you know, and that's what creates the arguments, really, just keeping that.
And I think it is the arguments happen because people care. It's just moderating it so everyone gets a voice, isn't it?
Well, can I come in, Amanda?
Of course.
There's just a couple of points, and it's subjective. I think you need to also be conscious of, there's a couple of things. First of all members are work within a code of conduct. So there is a code of conduct that says that we need to operate in a certain way and respect one another for a start. So, and I think Jo and Martha have just sort of mentioned about how we do that. And actually Claire took through a motion of at full council to actually remind everybody around that respect motion. I'm sure Claire will say something about that in a moment. But also you've got to realise, and I think this is an important part of it, that there is robust political debate for those very reasons that Martha's just said, that we're not always going to agree with one another. So you are going to have robust political debate, and that's should be done in a positive, healthy manner where it's about the policy, it's not about the person, and we should be enabled to have that in a civilised way. I would agree with everything Jo and Martha said. I always try to lead by example, try to treat everybody as I would want to be treated. However, there are people that push and they push back, and sometimes you have to stand firm, because I sometimes think, are you pushing back because I am a woman, or to see how far I'm going to go? But I do think as well, it can be quite subjective, and Martha and I have exchanged emails around this as well, because what is somebody finds maybe intimidating, somebody else will say, well, hang on a second, that was a perfectly reasonable debate. So it can be quite subjective, but there are rules around the way that members should conduct themselves with one another. And I think that's the thing that you need to look at if you're looking at coming forward, is that one, you're able and willing to work within those rules and those codes of conduct, and two, knowing they're there to safeguard you as well, so that if somebody if you feel intimidated by someone, you feel that they're not responding to you appropriately, you have that in place to enable you to take that process through.
I think that security is really welcomed. Claire.
Thank you. Yeah, and just following up on what Lynn said regarding the motion that I brought for just to remind people of civility in public life. And actually, I think we had a really good debate that night, and I think that cross-party, it was very supportive. So I think, you know, we don't always, I wouldn't like to think that certain meetings that people may have watched give you that broader view of what it's actually like. And I would encourage people to watch some of the other committees. For example, I sit on the Western Area Planning Committee, which is cross-party, and it's very civilized. It's a good debate. It's interesting questions that we raise. And that's, you know, there's no sort of real aggression to those debates. And equally, I chair the Health Scrutiny Committee, which again is cross-party, very much so. And I firmly believe we have a really good collegiate group on that committee, and it's, you know, and we're dealing with really interesting, sensitive topics. But I would encourage people to watch some of those other committees, because it's not all about the exec and it's not all about full council. The other committees and overview and scrutiny, for example, licensing, just gives you a better flavour perhaps of the usual committees that take place on a very much more sort of regular basis as well than some of the other full council, for example. And the other thing I would say as well is where we do have quite heated debates in whether it's executive or full council, you know, just to remind people that one of the Nolan principles, which we're also governed by, there's 7 principles to public life called the Nolan principles, is leadership. And I think, you know, sometimes you do have to take that leadership role, and Lynn and Joe on the executive, as executive members, do have to step up and you know, do the, you know, to give that leadership, you know, bring that to life. And I think that can obviously sometimes come across as confrontational, but actually it's doing your job. Thank you.
Thank you. There are a couple more questions. Firstly, though, Paula has said, I've raised many questions to council in public and always been treated fairly by the leader and the responder. So I think that's really nice to hear. Thank you for sharing that with us, Paula. And then Alice has asked, as you'd like to encourage women to be involved in politics, would you consider a focus group to increase confidence? What do we think?
I'm not sure exactly what Alice means by a focus group, if I'm honest. I mean, purely on confidence building is, I'm sorry, I'm not quite clear on the question, Alice.
Oh, there she is. Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Hello. Yes.
Yes. Alice, would you like to explain? That would be good. Thank you.
Well, you guys, you know, in the sense of to encourage women in politics, kind of thing, it would be nice to hear from you guys and being in the room and to be able to ask questions, and for you all to, it's sort of being a mentor, and that's what I was looking at, kind of thing. Is that
yeah, I think this will probably come on to next steps, Alice, as to if you're interested in going further from here, what happens next type of thing. So yes, I think the answer is yes, we'll be looking at, or we are all willing. I think it's very much a case of the next steps and how they will be handled by in different areas.
Okay. I mean, so it's got to be in the sense that you've got to belong to a group, or is it just?
So Alice, what we're going to do is our Alice, who is up here on the screen with the webinar background, has put all information that's needed on the website. There is also going to be a link to the local government authority becoming a councillor webinar that they're holding in a few days' time. So it will give people more information if they want to. Obviously, if you are interested in a political party, you can approach that political party and find information that way. There are lots of different ways forward here. What we hope tonight has done is encouraged you to think about it a little bit more, even if it's just to join the community panel, have a say in some of the work that we're doing, put yourself forward to maybe become part of a focus group on some of the things that the council are deciding on. There are lots of different ways that people can get involved, and all of the information about tonight will be on the website, and there will be a copy of the recording on the website as well. So hopefully that will help. Martha, you've got your hand up.
Yeah,
if we just
Alice mentioned mentoring. I mean, obviously when somebody has expressed an interest and you think that they might want to be a councillor, then I mean, I think we'd all probably feel that we wanted to support them. And certainly within my own group, we basically make sure that anybody interested has somebody alongside them so they can answer questions and they can give them support. So I don't know what she had in mind. I mean, maybe, I mean, there's a lot one does as an individual councillor out in the community, just talking to people. And I think that's what we're all doing. Maybe we should make ourselves a bit more open to sort of going and talking to groups possibly out there, just ordinary everyday people. I mean, you could even go, you know, have a chat to a women's group or something among the squealing babies or whatever, you know, just to sort of be around and answer questions. I mean, there's lots of stuff happening in the library now, you know, and so maybe we just, and there you would meet some ethnic minorities as well. So maybe just make ourselves more available and don't be afraid to raise the question. I think sometimes we're a bit embarrassed to say, what do you think about being a councillor? What you know, just ask the question and just be out there a little bit more. And I think that's probably the gentle way forward. I think, you know, if Alice thinks there's more that the council could do, then I'm sure she'll come forward and let us know. But we can all do a lot as individuals out of the community.
Thank you. I think we have another question from Lizzie Shepherd. What do you think is the best way to get young people involved in local politics?
Can I come in on that, Amanda, as we've been working quite a bit on this? Of course, yeah. It's a really good question, Lizzie, thank you. We are very conscious that a lot of our younger people don't actually know what local government does or know about what the role of the local council is. And I can say that quite honestly because Amanda and I have been doing a piece of work that's been looking to how we engage with younger people and how we get them interested in local government. However, when we've gone around, we've been to a couple of secondary schools, a lot of people were very clear they didn't really know anything about the council. They didn't know how to get involved. So Amanda's doing a massive piece of work around getting feedback from young people and looking what those next steps are. Next steps coming shortly from Amanda, but there I can assure you that as a local authority we are looking very seriously at this. Amanda's got some great ideas which will be announced shortly. Should we say that, Amanda?
I'm very excited, and I think it will open the conversation from children who are primary school upwards. Everyone will be involved, and that's my job, to make sure everyone's informed and everyone's involved and everyone has a say, and I'm very proud of the work that we're doing to enable that to happen. And as Lynn said, hopefully we'll be able to open that conversation up a bit very soon. Claire.
Thank you, Amanda. Just, I think it's a difficult one, as Lynn said, and I know obviously we're working on quite a lot of stuff. One thing I think we have got a lot better at is social media. And obviously you've still got to engage people to follow and to engage with that, but actually the communications that we have been getting out on social media, and I know Joe's you know, sort of promoting the mental health awareness weeks, and Lynn's often posting, and we're all trying to post and do different things on Twitter and Facebook, and I think that's hopefully going to help once we do get more engagement, hopefully. But I think just to highlight that we are trying to improve that, and I think we've come quite a long way actually, and actually even some of the older members of the council have actually engaged with social media as well, which is great. So I think we're sort of moved the dial a little bit on that front.
I agree, and we have somebody here from our team that looks after communication. So I'd just like to bring in Alice really quickly. Apologies for those with hands up, because it just seems relevant to bring her in now just to explain about that a little bit more.
Okay, so with the social element, yeah, we're trying to develop this more, trying to engage more by producing more videos, asking more questions, and also we've got our own TikTok channel now, which is definitely aimed at a younger audience. So we're also trying to do stuff on Instagram, and we're going to develop stories. So being the life of a certain officer, for example, we could do it with a councillor as well. So these are all things we're looking to explore to reach a wider audience, because we also know that different types of social media reach different audiences. So going from TikTok through to Facebook, you're covering a very wide age group and interest group as well. So hopefully with that we'll be able to engage with more of the community as well.
Thank you, Alice. Joe, you had your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to say Lizzie herself is an amazing young person involved in local politics, and she is an example to young people. She works hard, She's passionate, and I've known Lizzie for a few years. And I would say that Lizzie getting her story out there would be quite inspirational to a lot of young people as well.
Thank you. And Martha, your hand is still up. Was it up from before or?
No.
Perfect.
It was
okay. No, that's fine.
Putting it down and putting it back up again. No, I'm interested to hear about this work that the district's doing. I think it's very, very important. I think we all agree in engaging with young people, because they're forming their ideas now. Whether they go away to university, come back again, you know, they often come back again. So getting in there young and getting them interested and letting them feel that there's something that can be done. I think with young people, you've got to have some quick wins. You know, they give them a project, give them something that you can show they can do and have some influence over. I mean, on the town, we started engaging with young people a long time ago, and we've had quite a few successes. We've still got our local democracy working group where we go into the schools and talk to them and answer their questions, invite even the primary school children. It's amazing how knowledgeable they are and the questions that you get. And we're hoping that by this engagement, we're sowing seeds of inquiry and interest that will come back and maybe develop into people showing an interest in becoming local councillors. So we really feel it's important work that we're doing. And I'm really pleased that the district is now taking this out and spreading it across the district, because, you know, you have a wider spread and more influence and more resources at your fingertips. So I'm really interested to hear of the work that's going on and look forward to hearing more.
Sorry, had a mute problem there, everyone. Thank you so much. Thank you for all of your questions. Thank you, panelists, for sharing all of your experiences and your achievements and encouraging everyone tonight. I've really enjoyed it. I hope everybody who's attended has enjoyed it and that you'll find it useful. As I've said, all the information will be on our website to follow this up. If anyone has any questions and they want to email, please email us. All of the councillors' email information is on our website. You can find them by searching for them, and you're very welcome to email us as well. So please,
It's freezing every now and again.
Please, please feel free to call, email, check the website, get involved. And as I said, there's another webinar coming up shortly for local government, and that will be on the 7th of June, and we will also share that. The recording will be available to share. If you've enjoyed it and you want to watch it again, please do. That will also be on the website. But from me and from everybody on the panel, I'd just like to say thank you so much, and I hope everyone has a wonderful Jubilee weekend. Thank you for joining us. Good night, everybody.
No,
Thank you.
Thanks, Alice. Amanda. Thank you.